Welcome to the Seed Network once again for the 11th episode. Today I am with Rhoda. So, before we continue, welcome to the Seed Network.
Thank
I'm
you.
Paul, your host, and this is
Rhoda. Yes.
Welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Paul. I'm so excited but nervous.
I'm very nervous as well.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I
Yes.
was last behind the screen.
Yeah.
But how are you?
I'm good. I'm feeling good. Very excited for this. Ready to share my story, hoping that it can, influence someone or, inspire someone to continue to be who they are in this world. Yeah.
For sure. Before we continue, I'd love to take it all the way back. I want to know where you were born and how that was, if you remember any of that.
Okay, so back in 2001, I was born in Kenya, Kakuma refugee camp. My family moved here in November 2002. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was myself, my mom, my dad, and my brother Dominic and my sister Angelina. And we left behind 3 other siblings.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was not half of my family, but a majority of my family. And we moved to Fremantle Perth for the first time when we arrived. I don't remember much of it, but from what my mom and my father have told me, it was a big transition. I remember my mom was telling me how they had a burger for the first time when they arrived in Australia and how interesting that was for her. But yeah, just hearing that was like, okay, a burger for the first time, that's a big, big event, I guess, for someone who hasn't really, seen that type of food or been in an environment where there's like a lot of different people, you know. But yeah, I think for my parents, it was a big transition, new country, new life. But I guess they were full of hope that their children would, live a safe and happy life. And yeah, after that, we moved around Australia and we found ourselves in Victoria. Lived in Melbourne for a while, then for the rest of the time we lived in regional Victoria. That was interesting for sure.
Yeah. Before we get to where you were after Perth, I want to talk about Perth. Were you the youngest before you guys got here?
Yeah, I'm the youngest and the baby of the family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had older siblings. How old is the oldest?
The oldest is 37.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And who are you most connected with out of your siblings?
Ooh. I would say I was very connected to my brother Dominic when we were younger.
And how old is he compared to you?
He's 25. And now I'm more connected with my sister Angelina because we lived together when I moved to Melbourne and she was kind of like my mom for that time. So yeah, I'd say my sister for sure.
There you go.
Yeah.
And when you came here, because you were 1 year old, did you ever speak to your mum or parents or older siblings about what it was like in Kenya and what they experienced before you were born?
I mean, I would hear stories about like how very community orientated it was in that area and how people knew everyone knew who everyone was basically, especially in the different I think it was groups that they referred to. But yeah, I think they talked about having even moving here to Australia and still recognizing people from Kakuma and still having that community. I guess, that's something that they've talked a lot about. But I guess the biggest thing would also be just not feeling like they were living up to their potential or feeling like there wasn't a lot of hope moving out of that place.
Yeah. When you were sorry to interrupt, but when you were in Kenya, your parents moved there before you were born, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So where were they before that?
My mom said that they spent about 10 years in Ethiopia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've never had a guest that went through Ethiopia. I've had people that went to Kenya. I went up north and went to Egypt.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never had anyone that went to Ethiopia.
Ethiopia, yeah.
When did that happen?
I don't know what years, but I know that my oldest brother was actually born there. And
wow.
He is 33. He's 33 at the moment. So it would have been, I don't know my maths. But yeah, they lived there for a while before moving to Kakuma. So
what's your mom's favorite place that she's been to before she came here?
I feel like she might just say back home where she's from.
Yeah.
Because she talks about her homesickness quite a lot.
Right.
And just missing her family, I think, more so than just her reminiscing about her duties like during the day and just being with her like siblings, because she had a very big family.
Same, yeah. My mom had a massive family.
Yeah, I think it was like she's the youngest of like 36 children.
Wow.
And yeah.
I was thinking like 13, 14, but I think my mom had 14 siblings.
Yeah, my grandfather had 5 wives, so it was like a very big
That's so
family.
normal. That's very normal, yeah. That's what's still happening today.
Still, exactly. But yeah, she talked about just her siblings and missing cooking with her, like one of her sisters, and the conversations and the games that they would play. And yeah, I think if she could choose a place to go back to, it would definitely be back home, for sure.
What's not one thing? Give me 3 things, values that your mom tried to instill in you guys.
That's an interesting question. I feel like 3 things. Definitely respect is number 1. My mom definitely made sure that we had respect for our elders. Yeah. But I think that's something that a lot of parents across like Africa teach their children, because we have a lot of respect for older people, and we respect elders in our community and the wisdom and the experiences that they have. So my mom definitely taught all of us respect. The second one, I was gonna say cleaning, but I don't know if that's a value. That's not a value. I don't know, but like
values could be anything.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't want to say hygiene, but just being presentable and making sure that wherever you go, you look presentable.
That's good. That's something that's really important, because you don't get a second impression on someone.
That's true.
So it's really good to just try. It's important. And when you get guests, because I know we're community oriented, so people would often come to our house and for whatever reason. So it's always important to make sure that the house is always clean and presentable. Then that just became a habit. And then,
it is,
you know, and I love that. Even my mom can't sit down without having to clean something.
Exactly. It's like,
And also, majority of the jobs that they were allowed to have on the way here were just cleaning jobs.
Exactly.
So that's something they're really good at, and they just enjoy. It's therapeutic at certain times.
It actually is.
If you're not cleaning after a lot of kids that are not going to be grateful. But I find it therapeutic as well, and I've just learned it from my mom. That's a value. Honestly, I don't even think of it as that, but I always try to make sure that I'm living in a safe, clean environment. Yeah.
Because it's important. Like, I know my mom, maybe she was a bit like too much when it came to like ensuring that everything was clean. It's like you never know if someone might rock up, because I feel like
that's incredible.
We're notorious for showing up without any notice. So we had to make sure that everything was clean.
Actually, that's so funny, because that is something that's in the South Sudanese community. But then because back home, like your neighbors can come in whenever they want for whatever. Hey, do you have onions? Sugar, can I get some onions? Can I get some sugar? I come to see you, you know, or something bad was happening. I wanted to come and escape from, what was happening in the household. So, but I love that sense of no one is, you're welcome. Everyone's welcome.
For sure. Yeah, that would be a value, like being presentable, not only in the physical sense, but like ensuring that everything is good at home. I think the last one, I guess it's connected, but like hospitality, for sure. Not just like, maybe just kindness in general, and making sure that you're serving others, not only inside the home, but outside the home. My mom was very community orientated. Like, we used to live in Swan Hill and even in Bendigo. If you asked anyone there, do you know who Rebecca War is? They will tell you a story about her. She was everywhere and anywhere, and that's because of her great sense of she just served everyone and anyone. She ensured that we also showed that kindness. That's
something that's majority of the moms that have made it here, and just in general from South Sudan, have that. They just have that in them. It's just incredible. So I'm very blessed to have a strong mother that brought us here and gave me all these values. What's one thing, once you've adapted to this culture, that was hard to unlearn?
Unlearn. Ooh, there's so many things, I feel. This is a hard one. This culture, I think we're very individualists. So we aren't really good at having communities or I feel like we're very different to a lot of like non-Western communities where we're very, like, they're very collectivist. They work for a common good, common goal. Like we all have to be one, or at least share some type of value. And I think this culture, for me, it was hard to adapt to. But I think for me to kind of fit into this culture, especially living in regional Victoria, where there's like not a lot of people who are of African descent, I felt like I had to kind of fit into that individualist like way of being. And that wasn't good for me. I felt like it made me feel a bit isolated, and I felt like I lost different parts of myself. And I think it's been a journey for me to unlearn that and kind of step into more community-based like environments, and realizing that I'm not just one person, I'm part of something bigger.
You know, that's incredible. I didn't even think of it that way. I was thinking of what's something from the culture that you had to unlearn in order to fit in. But that's incredible, because that's something that a lot of us have to unlearn.
Yeah.
And I've got to unlearn that, okay, I know he has a very, like you said, more individualistic kind of thing, and we have to be a little bit more less selfish and kind of be a bit more community like we were once upon a time.
Because we are nothing without others.
I didn't even think of it like that. And in order to get here, we had to have, you know, sanduk in order to get and help families and all that. So that's something that's incredible. But I didn't even think of it. That's definitely something that we need to unlearn.
For sure.
Especially kids that are born here.
Yeah.
Because that's all they know.
I think they've definitely become more individualistic. Yeah. They don't really, and I think it's, sometimes we learn that and we start to adopt that unintentionally. Because we see it around us. We're like, oh, okay, let me start being like this without really having that intention to be so or to do so. But I guess something I've had to unlearn in terms of like my own culture, like South Sudanese culture, is a lot of the very traditional things that haven't really changed with time. I think culture is supposed to adapt to the new times, and it's not supposed to be stagnant. And I feel like a lot of the values we have around house roles and like gender roles, I think I've had to unlearn quite a lot. That's
one challenging thing that we have to deal with as young people. But that's interesting. Because you came here when you were young and then you went to school here. How was schooling like? What was primary school like? And what was high school like, being a South Sudanese girl?
Okay. It was okay when I was living here in Melbourne, because we lived in Dandenong, and I think I did prep and year one in Dandenong in a school where it was quite diverse. Literally a very diverse primary school.
Sudanese people?
South Sudanese.
So you came here, so you would have started, when were you, what year was it when you started?
Primary school?
Prep.
2006.
Because a lot of South Sudanese people came, obviously probably way earlier than 2004, but the majority came down in 2004.
That's true.
So that's when everything became a bit more diverse, especially down those areas, like Dandenong.
Dandenong. There was quite a lot, and we had like not even just like Dinka and Ram, we have Shilluk people, we have like North Sudanese people, and even like a lot of different Asian communities. And it felt like there was a balance. And it was so nice. Even though I was young, I didn't really understand a lot of things, but it was nice to be exposed to that.
I was very lucky, because when I came to Australia, I went to primary school in Reservoir for like 3 months. Very short. Then I went to another primary school in Preston. And that was for like a couple of months. And then I finally moved to Richmond.
Interesting.
So, how was your primary school, and how was your high school experience?
I think so I moved after year one, like midway through, I think, back in 2007, I believe. Randomly on one day, my mom was like, we're going on a holiday. And we ended up in Swan Hill.
How was Swan Hill?
So hot, almost, it wasn't a desert, I won't say that. It's like countryside, but it was so hot, especially in summer. 45-degree days, for sure.
Your mom would have loved it, because she
loved it, of course, But like, I wish she let us know that we were gonna stay there permanently. But it was just so strange, like going from like a very diverse like school, and then being like the same experience of being like, me and my brother were like the first African students at our primary school, in the history of that. And I think recently they celebrated their 100th year. So in that time, we were the only African students to arrive there and like become students.
How was that?
Ooh. It was a little hard, being a young person exposed to a lot of like students who were kind of racist. I don't know, like I understand that a lot of children they do things that, or like they kind of copy what their parents do. And
okay, is that?
I feel like they kind of see how their parents interact with non-white people in their daily lives and kind of copy that and kind of still kind of interact with other people the same way. And I felt that a lot of the students there were racist because of that experience. And it was very strange having...
Because there's young kids being racist and being curious. Like someone could be like, oh, mum, a black face.
Exactly.
Mum, someone black.
Yeah.
You know, that's like, okay, maybe they're just curious because they've probably seen the color black and they're trying to let the mum know that they've been paying attention with colors. But there's kids where it's like, oh, you know, I don't want to give an example, but you know, you would definitely give an example, but you could tell the difference.
There's a big difference. Like curiosity is fine. Kids are by nature curious. They want to know why the sky is blue and all of that. And it's okay, but I think it becomes dangerous when kids start to like spew a lot of hate. And I remember a big thing was like, oh my God, she has cuties. And they used to do this thing where they would touch me and like run away and be like, you have the cuties now, and saying that like, they would ask me questions also about like if I've tried scrubbing my skin because I might just be dirty or something. And this was like in year 3, year 2. But then I remember in year 5 and year 6, there was a lot of incidents where I would not be invited to a lot of birthday parties. And I remember one of my friends gave out like invitations to our friendship group. And then I was like, oh, wait, where's mine? And she's like, sorry, but my parents don't want people like you over. And I remember feeling so like confused. I'm like, what do you mean people like me? She's like, they just don't want you. And I was so curious about that. And I didn't realize how impactful that was for me until like last year when I kind of reflected on a lot of the experiences I had in primary school. And I was thinking to myself, like a 12-year-old was able to tell me that I can't come to their birthday party because I was black, and that their parents didn't want me there, despite me being like an innocent child who just wanted to, you know, attend a birthday party. That was quite dangerous and harmful, and it has definitely impacted me even in my adulthood, where I become more kind of not scared but anxious being around non-black people because of fear that like I might experience something like that again. You know, being
like excluded.
Being like excluded from things just because I was black. So for
have you experienced anything like that in your adulthood?
Yeah. Being even like in high school, like moving from Swan Hill to Bendigo for my final like VCA year, I remember not being invited to like a birthday party.
What year was this?
Year 11, I believe.
Yeah, because that's when you're like, you should know by now.
You should know by now.
In year 11, year 12, you're about to graduate. You're the seniors of the school.
Yeah.
So to still have that, you know, it's a bit...
And I like, because I was still new, like I was still finding like my friendship group, and I was like, okay, fair enough. But then I remember finding like a group chat where they were like talking about me and using like very like strong racial slurs and referring to me as, you know, the N-word. And I remember thinking to myself, here we are again, like being excluded intentionally by people who are almost adults, who've been exposed to, because I wasn't the only black person in that school. They've been exposed to other like non-white people, but they still don't understand inclusion. And I feel like this is something that they've started to like teach younger kids in primary school, like even later on, like around 2014-ish, I think that became a big thing. Yeah, I think that for me, that was quite traumatic. And I think a lot of people don't understand the effects of like racial-based trauma in like educational like environments. And for me, that really made my schooling experience terrible, to be honest.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because I do know, kind of reflecting back on how my schooling was in my primary school and high school, I do, you know, realize how insane school is. The school, because it's a bunch of kids who are begging for attention. They don't know what's happening, and they haven't been taught how other people live and what other people eat and how other people
eating.
All that, and kids don't hold back. They don't, because they don't they have non-consequential thinking.
Yeah.
So they don't know how this is going to affect someone.
Exactly.
And so that was difficult in primary school. In high school as well, it's just really savage. It's very savage.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough though. I went to a pretty good high school. I went to an all-boys school.
Oh.
And I was the class clown. So everything was humorous to me.
Yeah.
Of
course.
But I was very lucky. But I know how it could be.
Yeah.
After leaving high school, how was your experience with that, and how did you deal with what you experienced during high school, in primary school, that was racially traumatic?
I think after that, I was like, I don't know if I can ever go to like an educational institution again if this is what I've been exposed to so far. And I think what actually helped me cope with a lot of that was going to places where there were people who look like me. So although I lived in Bendigo, I would come to Melbourne during the weekends and stay with my sister. And that's when I would go to like, spoken word events, or go to like events that were not exclusively, but majority people of color. And those spaces I felt so safe in. And that's where I got to learn about other people's similar experiences. And it almost felt like we were helping each other cope with all that trauma, and kind of having the opportunity to speak about it in like through poetry and through just like telling stories. And that really, I felt like saved me a lot. And also therapy after that. But yeah, that was like my safe space to be able to unpack all of that and like unlearn all of those things that I've kind of held on to. But yeah, I think that was very helpful. But I kind of overcame that and decided to just go to university despite that fear again.
That's amazing. That you had the courage to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did hesitate a little bit, but then I decided to just go for it. And yeah, now I go to a university where I see a lot of people who look like me.
Yeah.
And just seeing that diversity and having the space to just be and learn and not having to be exposed to those things.
Let's talk about, high school and primary school. What advice would you give someone, either a young South Sudanese girl or a young child that is either in high school or primary school that has gone through what you've gone through? What advice would you give them?
I would say find your community, your group of people, or a place where you can go to where you can feel safe, and you don't have to find a place to kind of like talk about everything, because sometimes you need a break from talking about racism and all the other isms that you experience. Sometimes you need a place to go to where you can just be yourself and where it's like non-judgmental. So if you can find that, find a place, find a group of people or an activity where, not to distract you, but to kind of give you a break, that's my biggest advice. Just find that.
I love that.
Yeah.
When did you get on the journey, or has that always been a household thing, learning about the culture? When did you look more into your culture and try to understand more about who you are?
Actually, like that process of learning about who I am and like my culture was another thing that helped me as well. Yeah. Kind of deal with all of that. That's what's helping me
right now. Yeah. That's been a process that I've been doing for the past 3.5 years now, and I loved it ever since. It's just been the funnest journey. It's a good journey. It's a journey I'm going to do for the rest of my life, and I'm going to make sure I pass that down.
Yeah.
But that's been a life-changing, pivotal moment of my life. When did you have that experience, and how's that been?
Oh, when did I have that experience? I feel like I was a little bit connected to my culture just by living in a South Sudanese home and having my mom. And, just the decor around the house and the music my mom would play. That kept me close to my culture. But when I really took like a deep dive, I think it would have been right after I graduated high school. And like I said, found my community of people who were very into, like they could speak, I could not speak my language fluently.
Oh man, you should hear my dinka.
Yeah, I butchered it, and I'm like, I still am not that great, but
another thing before you continue, I literally want to make people realize that like it's fine to not be able to speak dinka. My dinka is horrible, but I'm getting there. It's getting better, especially living, back in my mom's house now.
Yeah.
And hearing her say some stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what that meant. I wouldn't
have
guessed.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
And like, I think just having like my mom, she speaks like so many different languages.
Yeah.
But trying to like learn Dinka and Nuer was important for me to really become deeply connected to my my culture and even my community. Yeah, just having conversations with my mom and her telling me stories about like her experience back home and just our culture in general really helps me kind of take in that and kind of doing my own research as well, even though I couldn't really find a lot. It's always about the war, which is also an important part of our history. Yeah. But it's like, I want to learn about like traditional religions, spirituality.
This is why we have this show. This is the reason why we have the Seed Network.
See, I want to know more about that. So we can get these stories
out there. Yeah. So if you are looking for something like this is the best place for it.
Like, I want to know about that. Like language, yes. I want to learn about spirituality. Like what like types of jobs and duties people had back in the day. And like, I know we have like around 60 something, I don't know if it's languages or tribes.
We have 60 plus tribes. And languages are changing every day because people want to just differentiate from people.
It's interesting. I want to learn about that and like the history around like how language was developed in South Sudan. But a lot of the content that I'm finding is a lot of war-based content. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not just our history. Yeah. We're more than just conflict. And that perspective usually comes from a lot of Western countries. Yeah. We rarely hear about like people who've literally, like eyewitnesses, people who've like, I feel like sometimes those stories help people kind of soothe their guilt sometimes. Or it just gives this whole, I just feel like it's like a sub story for people to kind of listen to and be like, oh, I feel so sorry for you. Now you're in a safe country. Yeah. We did that for you type of energy.
And another thing as well is, like you're saying, people, you get sick of hearing repetitive things and same conversations. That's why I think most of these kids don't want to even learn about their culture because all they hear is, oh, it's all about war. And you're like, so, well, I don't want to hear about war. I don't. It's just, is there anything else we could talk about that I might like? Because, you know, not everyone can relate through war. I feel like we need to create different stories so kids could have a way in by relating to this story and to that and to this, and there was none of that for so long. Yeah, we need to try also educate kids on stories that haven't been told. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Even I feel like a lot of the times for like a lot of athletes or people who've made it far into mainstream media, when they're kind of introducing themselves,
it's always that thing.
Fled from a war-torn country. Yeah, that's true. They did that, but the way that they frame these stories, it's almost like, I don't know what the word is, but it kind of takes away from their achievements and what they've made for themselves now.
Exactly. Even I think there was an incident where Peter Bowl, the athlete who came second in the Commonwealth Games recently.
Shout out to Peter Bowl.
Shout out to Peter Bowl, if you're watching this. Great job. I can't wait to see you win gold as well.
Yes.
But there was an incident where he got introduced as, you know, a guy from a refugee camp in Kakuma, and that was completely wrong.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think he went to Egypt, I think. I could be wrong myself, but he wasn't where they said that he was, who came from. It's like you're just creating a narrative to get more attention.
Exactly. But those stories sell. They help.
Exactly.
I just feel like, it's almost like I don't want to say sub story, because, you know, that's a lot of people's experiences, and I'm not going to take away from that. If it's experiences,
do it, but don't create something that's not true just to have that. It's like if someone's gone through the Egyptian, gone on a plane to come here, you know, don't say this guy went through, you know,
all
it's like, well, that never happened.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's so far from like the context of the story, but they always try to find a way to put it in. But
I know.
I think it's important for us to be able to tell our stories as well.
Exactly.
Let us have control of the narrative.
For sure. Yeah. Talking about stories, we did meet at an open mic night, and you were upstage, which is a great job. But that's incredible to do. So great job on that one. When did you get into poetry? When did you get into reading and your love for books and stories?
I think I've always enjoyed storytelling. I remember just having like this book where I would like write random stories.
So how old were you when this was?
Ooh, I would have been like 8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I remember just writing random things in this book of mine. And I've always been a child who loved to daydream a lot. And I would try to get those stories from my brain, from my imagination, and like write them down and create a world for myself where it was different from what I like what I was living in. I think I wanted to kind of escape that. So that was my way of doing so. And yeah, from there, I would just find books that were about fantasy, about like worlds that were very different from this, and just going to the library and like reading in the corner, and like when the bell rings, I'll just still sit there trying to finish it. But I think after high school, that's when I was like, yeah, I love reading. I'm going to continue to do this, and I'm going to start writing poetry. Yeah. Because I think it was this video I watched on YouTube of this amazing Sudanese poet who was so articulate, and like the way they told the story was just so like captivating. And I'm like, I want to be like her. Like, how do I do that? So I kept doing my research, and I kept reading books.
Do you remember her name in case someone wants to look into her and get as inspired as you did?
Yes, I believe her name is Emmy Mohammed. Yeah. She's Sudanese, like she looks just like me, but I think she's from North Sudan, yeah. But her story was very similar to a lot of our stories as well. But yeah, just hearing her and seeing her on that stage, and the power that she had in the way she talked and her presence, I was like, I need that. I need that confidence. I need that power.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So from there, I just created stories and wrote a lot of poems about my experiences. And in 2020, I made a pledge that I would read at least 100 books by African and Black American authors. And I'm almost there, but...
Congratulations, that's incredible. That's incredible. Before we continue, I'm going to ask one question because I need to know.
Yes.
Who is your favorite Black author? That's probably tough. I give you mine.
Okay.
I'll start off. So it's on the shelf. My first book is Majak Do's book. Incredible book. The second book is Unknown by Akuch. Right there. It's an incredible book. I love that book. Any South Sudanese kids or anyone who's wanting to read and want to relate, read those two books. It's incredible books. Very inspiring, and it's just incredible to know what we had to go through, what our family members had to go through, what our parents had to go through, and what things they saw that they can't talk about. So that's definitely a good way to start reading books, especially because it's very hard to find books about South Sudanese people.
From their perspective.
Exactly, yeah. Another book I recommend is Breaking Sudan, and that explains the war basically. But in a way where we understand more why the North and South kind of separated.
Yes.
Have you read that book?
I haven't.
I need to give you that book.
Please.
Yes, I give you that book. So that is another book. That's 3 books.
Yeah.
Yeah, I give you 3. So you have to give me at least 1. If you could give 3 or more, that would be perfect.
Okay. So I'm a big James Baldwin fan.
Oh, I love him.
If Beale Street Could Talk was my first book that I read by a Black author.
Okay.
And I think it was like right after I finished high school. I remember watching the trailer for the actual film adaptation, and I was like, where's the book? I need to read the book. So I got it, I read it, I fell in love, and I've read like a lot of his books. But for me, I feel like number 1, Toni Morrison.
Yeah, right.
She is amazing, and her book Sula has literally changed my life. That book and the way it's framed, and the themes of like friendship, and it's not full of trauma, which is something I tend to avoid in books because I just find that sometimes it's hard to digest. But there's like sadness but also happiness, and I like a balance of that. So Sula was, that book changed my life. Another book I read was The Sex Lives of African Women. Yeah. And that book... You
were reading it at the same time. I think Ayul read it.
Yeah. Shout out, because I recommended Ayul to read that. It was me, guys. I take credit. But so many people have read that and have had amazing reviews. Yeah. And like I said, perspectives from African people on African topics is that's the most important for me. And being able to read that and like hearing their perspectives on different things, on relationship, like that really was amazing for me. I think that's all I can think of now. There's so many books, but those are my favorites. Yeah, for sure.
We're getting more and more incredible South Sudanese people on platforms and being noticed and being seen for their sportive ability, their academia. just model, because we have the most beautiful people.
We do.
We have the tallest people and the darkest people. So that's that's a new
beautiful
face of model now. That's the best combination.
Yeah.
So that's one thing we should be talking about more.
Exactly.
Our people have the darkest people and the tallest people in the world.
Exactly.
And we are dominating in the female modeling scene. We are. Now that there is more, growing up, who were you looking up to, and who do you look up to now? Because the more the better. But who did you start off with?
I can tell you who are my inspirations now, but back then they were, like you said, there weren't a lot of people that I knew of. I can only think of my mom and the women in my community, like who were living in Swan Hill, who I could look up to, who I could say like were my inspirations because of like their hard work. But I can't think of anyone who was like in the mainstream media. I think Majak Dor was someone I knew of back in like kind of like my high school years, but that's the only person I know, and that's actually quite sad when I think about it. That's heartbreaking.
I'm gonna grab this book because there's another person. Here we go. This is another person that she's incredible. She is.
Yes.
She's doing an amazing job, and so yeah, I had to get this. I need to put up there somewhere. But she's another person that
definitely in my list now.
She's opened a lot of doors for a lot of South Sudanese girls to be involved in the fashion world as well.
Now that I think of it, when I was in high school, I remember it was Ducky Thought and Nikki who were like the face of modeling for South Sudanese women back in like, I think 2014, 2015-ish. They were my inspirations.
There you go.
For sure.
I'm glad we got something.
Look at me, yes, I can think of someone. For sure, they were like just seeing women who looked like me, who just had this amazing presence. Like I know Nikki was on YouTube and Ducky was like on Instagram modeling. She was on Australian, I think, the Next Top Model.
I think so.
Yeah, and just seeing someone who had the same complexion, the same features, being on that, like being in the modeling industry and knowing that beauty looks like that as well was so important for me. So yeah, shout out to them, for real. They changed my life.
That's good. Being from an amazing, beautiful country with beautiful people, which is South Sudan.
Yes.
What is one thing you're grateful for?
Oh, another hard question. There's so many things. So many things.
I know.
I think
write a book about it.
Let's write a book about it. I think our resilience.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes. Sitting out, because this is the 11th episode, but hearing how many stories we had of how moms just had to push through the storm, fathers weren't there, whether it was they went to war, whether they just were unfaithful and went and married someone younger and started another family, whether they just were unfortunately killed in the war. The parents had to wear the hat and just be both the mum and the father. And we didn't have small family, we had big families.
Oh, we did, for sure.
And all different ages, So for the mums to, I keep on saying this every episode, I'm going to continue saying this every episode, and I'm going to always give them their flowers because mums have done so much and their resilience is just incredible, unbeatable, and that's something that I'm very grateful for, and I'm glad you brought that up.
For sure. Like resilience, I think if we could be the face of it, we should. Like we as a nation, as a country, like we've been through so much, and a lot of us have been separated from what we know, from our families, from our towns, like, and being able to adapt and still be here, that's powerful. That's so powerful.
I love that. One more question. I believe everyone's here to plant something. All right. And you know how articulate you are, how passionate you are about your culture, and how grateful you are for who you are. How do you think you found what you're here to plant?
Maybe I'm here to plant seeds of just, I don't want it to sound selfish, but just planting the seeds for the future so that the younger generations who grow up can be able to pick from that tree of inspiration and being able to just make themselves known in this world. It doesn't have to be in the capacity of being like a supermodel or a football player, just being who they are and being powerful in that is all I want. And I guess that's the seed I want to plant. Not for myself, but for them. Because I wish I had that for myself when I was younger.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad that I came back with the 11th episode with you.
Thank you.
This was a very, very fun episode.
Yes.
I've learned so much, and I'm so glad that you were happy enough to join me.
Thank you for having me.
Today.
Yes.
We'll definitely have another episode in the future.
Yes.
But it's just been so fun, so thank you so much once again,
you.
Rhoda. Any shout outs you have? Any person you want to shout out?
My mom.
There you go.
Shout out to Rebecca Wood.
Shout out to Rebecca. I have to make sure your mom watches this.
I will make sure she does. Yes. When I'm talking about her, she'll definitely listen.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, once again, thank you so much. It's been an honor, and I am very happy to capture this today.
Thank you.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me for my 11th episode of the Seed Network. This was really fun. I was so glad that I came back with a bang, having Rhoda on. So once again, thank you guys so much for joining me and watching it this far. Wait for us for the next one. There's more to come. And yeah, thank you guys.